time it's already started with the time. I apologise to anyone who's waiting here. Please tell the record he's still under oath. Is there any examination?
What that?
Yes, witness still under oath.
Thanks. Sir, did the committee reach any decision?
The committee yafikelela kwisigqibo.
Yes, isigqibo esikomiti yafikelela kwisigqibo esithi uZokwana asinomvumelo uba address meeting ngapha sombulana lapha entabeni.
Yes, the decision was that we will not allow Zokwana to address us and we will kill him there on the mountain.
Was the decision related to other protesters?
Baxelelwe ke abanye abaqhankqalazi ngeso sigqibo.
Ayiphelele ukuthi thina amakomiti.
It remained only with us, the committee members. The decision remained.
Sir, there's evidence before this commission that on the 15th again, the negotiating team of the South African Police Services met with the 5 committee members that was appointed by the strikers. Are you aware of that?
Kunobungqina ke apha bokuba nge-15 polisa la beqhuba ke izinto into besenzeka nalamalunga ayi-5 wabaqhankqalazi badibana futhi unolwazi ngalonto.
Yeah, amapolisa aye afuna abantu abayi-5 ayicela basibeke izikhali phansi.
Yes, the police wanted 5 people and they asked us to put down their weapons.
Is that on the 15th?
In 15 late? Yes.
The 5 people who came forward who were chosen to speak to the police.
Obani ke aba bantu bahlanu baye bazanga phambili bezawuthetha namapolisa.
Kwangumambushi noXolani nabayi-3.
Mambush, Xolani and 3 others.
Who were the 3 others?
Abanye bayi-3 ngobani?
Amagama abo andiwazi kakuhle ke wona.
I'm not very clear about their names. But I can point them out if I see them.
Do you know if there was any discussion between the members of the committee and the police?
Yes, uyazi ukuba ke kwaba nengxoxo phakathi kwamapolisa ne-members malunga committee.
Yeah, amakomiti ayacathi balanda umqeshi asinozibeka ebukhali entabeni engezanga nomqeshi nalomlungu asinike izidimandi sizifunayo.
Yes, the committee members told the police to go and fetch the employer, that we are not going to lay down the arms. The employer must come and agree to our demands.
Are you aware that the negotiating team gave a feedback that was received from the loanman management to the committee members?
Uyayazi ke ukuba aba bebeqhuba intethanethwano ezi baza nengxelo evela kwa-loanman beyinika ikomiti leyo.
Yeah, kwafika entambamba uTata Zokwana noTata Mathunjwa.
Yes, in the afternoon Mr. Zokwana and Mr. Mathunjwa arrived.
Sir, I'm still dealing with the situation or process between the negotiating team and the committee members. We will come to that aspect at the later stage.
Yes, akuleyo ukufika kaTata Zokwana noTata Mathunjwa sathetha ngalamapolisa la beqhuba ingxoxo nekomiti le. Sathetha ngengxoxo eziphakathi kwamapolisa nekomiti. Yayiqonda?
I
understand.
Are you aware that on the 15th, the negotiating team gave a report back to the committee members?
Uyayazi ke into ba nge-15 i-team lena iqela elinegotiatayo lanika i-report lanika ingxelo kwikomiti.
Zange andikhumbuli tata.
No, I do not remember that.
So I'm going to refer you to Exhibit L, showing you some of the slides of how the protesters conducted themselves.
Sabonisa ke pha kujongisa u-exhibit L bonisa ezinye imifanekiso bonisa indlela babeziphethe ngayo abaqhankqalazi.
Mr. Bennett, will you refer to, show us Exhibit L slide 119?
So there's our slide 11 and to exhibit L.
Are you familiar with the photo depicted on the screen?
Uyayazi ke la photo ekhumbula ibonakala lapha screenini?
Ndiyayikhumbula tata.
Yes, I am.
Ndiyayikhumbula tata.
What was happening?
Bekusenzeka ntoni pha?
Sasicula tata.
We were singing.
You will note that there is a gentleman standing in front of the crowd who's got something that looks either like a blanket or a towel with a nokiri. Do you see him? With a blue top.
Banento engapha ngesentla eblue uphethe into engathi itawulo kanye ingubo nenduku. Uyayibona?
Ewe tata.
Yes, I see.
Who is this gentleman?
Ubani lamfo?
Ukeza tata kwasefrixaflo.
That is Kaiser from Flagstaff.
Was he part of the Macarapas?
Ebe ingxenye ke yamakarapa uKaiser. Omnye wamakarapa.
Ebeyikomiti kodwa eyingxenye yamakarapa kuthiwa bathi ke bembiza babathi ngumadala bembiza benigama lakhe phakathi bembiza.
He was part of the committee as well as one of the Macarapas, and they sometimes call him Madala.
Mr. Bennett, will you kindly take us to slide 168?
Before we move to slide 168, can we see you on the slide? This slide 119.
Wena uyabonakala pha kula mfanekiso?
Ndikhona tata ndipha ngasemva.
I am somewhere there at the back.
We can't actually see you.
Awubonakala sikwazi ukubona.
Ngeke kwaze ngibone.
No, we can't see.
Mr. Bennett, will you please go to slide 168? There's a gentleman depicted in the slide. Can you see him?
Kho indoda ebonakalayo pha kulo mfanekiso uyayibona?
Ewe tata.
Yes.
To be speaking, can you see him?
Bonakala ngathi uyathetha lo mfo.
Ewe tata.
Yes.
Who is this gentleman?
Ubani lo mfo?
Ukeza tata.
That is Kaiser.
So I would like you to compare the top that he is wearing depicted in slide 168 and the one in slide 119.
Ufuna ke uthelekise impahla itop le yazinxibileyo kwezi kule mifanekiso mibini 168 nale.
Are you in a position to do so, sir?
Uyakwazi ukwenza loo nto uthelekisa itop la enxibileyo kuloo mifanekiso mibini 119
Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt, my learned friend, but really, is this a matter on which a witness should give evidence? Commissioners can for themselves compare the clothing and see if it's the same. The witness is not an expert on clothing.
Isn't that correct,
njalo ke Lemba that's hasibonela ukuzobona.
We can have arguments about it later. We can be shown the slide. And this witness has had any value on this.
Well, Chair, I think I will do so, but I need to indicate that it's one of the important aspects of the evidence of this witness.
It's the important aspect.
Chair, you will remember that the witness testified that one of the instructions of the Nyanga is that within a period of 7 days, they should not wash. Now, this has got a material bearing on the clothing, because on a number of occasions, different days, you see people are wearing the same clothing.
You know, I can understand that, because one can see it with your own eyes by looking at the various slides today. I understand the point you make. And if you can say, look at this photograph, wearing black brown jacket. Look at this photograph, same brown jacket 2 days later. This photograph, same brown jacket 2 days after. Then the point's made. You don't have to be.
Thanks, Chair. I don't have a problem. Will you please have a look at slide 121?
Slide 121.
You will note that to the top right, there's a gentleman who's having a weapon, who appears to be looking at the weapon. Can you see him?
Yabona pha phezulu kusanda kunene khoindoda pha iphethe isikhali ungathi uyasikotha. Uyambona?
What that?
Yes, I see.
Are you in a position to identify this gentleman?
Uyamazi la mfo?
Yeah, ndiyamazi bengumuntu wamakarapa.
Yes, I know him. He was one of the Makarapas.
Are you in a position to give an explanation as to why he's speaking this weapon?
Kutheni ngongasichaza bakuthene ekhotha esasikhali? Sasixhoba siphethe.
Hayi again ndinichazele kwasenza nje kusaba ugeza kwakhethatha.
No, I can't. He was just being sick.
You know his name?
Igama lakhe. Uyalazi?
Hayi tata ndiyazi igama lakhe, ndiyazi uba umuntu wamakarapa.
No, I do not know his name, but I just know he's one of the Makarapas.
Below him to the right, there is a gentleman with dreadlocks who appears to be having 2 weapons. Can you see him?
Phansi kwakhe ke khona ngomnye umfo une-dreadlocks, uyambona?
What that?
Yes, I see.
Do you know his name?
Uyalazi igama lalo?
Yeah, ngumagubane ngurasta lo.
Yes, that is Makubani Rasta.
What was his involvement during the unprotected strike?
Intoni ke yena indawo ayidlalileyo phaa kolaqhankqalazo?
Wayikomiti aphinde abe ngumuntu wamakarapa tata.
He was a committee member and a member of the Makarapas.
To the left at the top of the slide, there's a gentleman who's kneeling, wearing a brownish top, having a weapon. Do you see him?
Phezulu ke sesandleni sokunxele khoindoda pha enxibe ibhatyi ebrown iguqile ngathi iphethe into pha, uyambona lowo mfo?
What that?
Yes.
Do you know his name?
Uyamazi yena igama lakhe?
Yeah, ngumagubane ngokuseka ngurasta lo.
Yes, that is Makubani, that is Rasta.
And below him, in the middle to the left, there's a gentleman, another gentleman. Do you see him?
Phansi nje kwakhe la fotonyana iphakathi nendawo, uyambona lo?
Yeah, ndiyambona.
Yes, I do. Uyamazi yena?
Ngumambushi tata wana awana ngakula duku ayiphathe ngesandla.
That is Mambush with the towel in his hand.
Bengubhobho umnyelo ecawakhe.
Then there's Bob next to him.
Lo anxibe ijazi emnyama.
The one wearing a black coat. Maybe just emnyama.
Yeah.
So I'm referring to the slide, the second one, immediately after the gentleman.
Hang on, before we get on to that one, I suspect you were talking about the top left slide. Would you look at the top left slide, please? You see the top left slide?
Yabona le photo epha phezulu ngase left ngasesandleni sokunxele.
In the middle of that slide, there's someone with a green blanket or something around him.
Nango lo lathwayo
Who's that?
nango ngelo lathwayo ngento green banto. Banto yabona into lathi leyo bomvu.
Ngumambushi tata.
Yes, that is Mambush.
And then to his left, slightly behind him to his left, there's someone with a blanket. It looks half white and half brown on
Ngase
it.
left
Reddy
na
brown.
lo
Who's
secaleni
that?
kwakhe.
You know that?
Lo lathwayo ngobe ngathi brown nobumhlophe.
Andazi igama lakhe tata, ngumuntu wamakarapa naye.
I don't know that man's name, but he's Makarapa.
And then to that man's left, there's someone with a black coat or something. Is that?
Ngale
Who's that
kwalowo
person?
ke nangu ngokulonathwayo ngathi unxibe into ejazi emnyama. Yabona?
uBob utata.
That is Bob.
That's Bob. And to the left of that person, there's someone dressed in red and black. Do you know who that person?
Ecaleni kwakho uBob nanku yalonathwayo ngokunento ebunokubomvu nobumnyama.
Ya ngomunye umfo wamakarapa igama lakhe alilazi tata.
That's also a Makarapa member whose name I do not know.
Thank you. And then now in the middle on the left-hand side, there's another photograph with two men standing up in front of the crowd. One of them in the middle of the picture has got a light brown khaki jacket of some sort.
Nanku yalonathwayo.
Quite a long weapon in his hand. Who's that?
Phethe isixhobo eside bantu.
Umakubani tata lona angezantsi aphethe ibush.
That is Makubani with a punk.
Yes.
And then to the left of him, there's another man standing up with, looks like red sleeves. He's got a jacket or something, but he's got red sleeves. Can you see that? Who's that person?
Bantu.
uBob utata.
That is Bob.
Thanks, Chair. Sir, why were these gentlemen armed like this?
Utheni beqhubeka kanje baba?
Silindele nayiphi na into engehla ngobama anenye uba ngaba lo mqeshi asinika idemand zethu kwehle yona kuliwe.
We are ready for anything that might happen. If the employer does not give in to our demands, we are ready to fight.
Thanks, Mr. Bennett. Will you please move over to slide 124? Sir, are you familiar with what is set out in this picture?
Le photo uyayibona ke into enzeka pha uyayazi into sibona kule photo?
Ewe tata.
Yes, I am.
What was happening on this occasion?
Bekusenzeka ntoni na?
Kuzokwana lona afikayo uhamba nomtata uMathunjwa tata.
That's the arrival of Mr. Zokwana with in the company of Mr. Matuju.
Are you in a position to point out or describe Mr. Zokwana in this slide?
Ungasibonisa ukuba ngomkhwe uZokwana kule photo?
Ya uzokwana ngulo anebhlukwe emhlophe aphambili. Lona phethe ibhodlela ekhukhu incane.
Zokwana is the one in front in white pants carrying a Coke bottle.
Next to him, there's a gentleman who's wearing a black lumba or jacket-like and a red T-shirt with a fawn trouser. Can you see that?
Secaleni kwakhe ke kho la mfo weskipa esibomvu nebhaji engathi mnyama, bhrukwe brown, uyambona?
Ewe tata.
Yes.
Do you know him?
Uyamazi lo?
Andimazi igama lakhe.
No, I do not know his name.
What was happening on this occasion, sir?
Bekusenzekani ntoni ke ngokwabo?
Ngokuhamba kanje baye hiphini nguzokwana ophambili uMathunjwa uzoqhama ngasemveni kwaba yithi.
They are walking now
Kuzokwana bazongena ehiphini ngo.
walking to the hippo vehicle.
Bazothetha
Zokwana
bengaphakathi
is in
hiphi.
front. Matunjwa will appear behind these two gentlemen.
What was the reason for the presence of Mr. Matunjwa?
Kutheni ke naye uMathunjwa ekhona? Ntoni sizathu uba befanayo?
uMathunjwa wayesixelele nge14 uba bazofika nozokwana ngomso apha singamvumeli uzokwana address meeting apha efika nyani ke uzobazongena ehiphini njengangoku basongena ehiphini uzokwana sizomchallenge uzochallenge umxolana abizwe umxolani kwase ehiphini bamba kwehle phansi.
Mr. Matunjwa told us on the 14th that he'll come there with Mr. Zokwana the next day. Now they are going to the hippo vehicle. Mr. Zokwana will be challenged by Xolani. Uzawuchallengwa Xolani.
Yangicolana uzombiza athi make zapho sokufunza ozange ehle uzokwana wayewahlala ehiphini.
Xolani is going to call him, but Zokwana never alighted from the hippo. He remained in the vehicle.
Did Mr. Zokwana address the protesters?
Wathetha ke Mr. Zokwana nabakhankalazi?
Zange simvumeli uba makathethe nathi.
No, we never allowed him to talk to us.
Did he try to address the strikers?
Uzamile kodwa ukuthetha nabakhankalazi?
Wazama kodwa zange amkeleke uba makathethe nathi. Sayeza kwamkele uMathunjwa kwathiwa makabuye ngomso nge-16.
He tried, but he was not welcome to talk to us. Mathunjwa was welcomed and he was told to come back the next day, the 16th.
For now, sir, let's have a discussion about Mr. Zokwana. Will come to Mr. Mathunjwa at a later stage.
Make sithethe ke ngoMr. Zokwana kwangoku sawube sithethe ngoMathunjwa ne.
Ewe tata.
Why was Mr. Zokwana not welcomed by the strikers?
Utheni ngamkelekanga bakhankalazi uMr. Zokwana?
Uzokwana ngenxa yoba lasesifumene uba bazofika ngomso lasombulala ngexesha embiza abizwe hippie.
Because we had already heard that they would come the next day and were going to kill him as he was being called from the hippo.
Why? When was the decision taken that Mr. Zokwana would be killed?
Sithathwe nini sosigqibo sokuba uzawubulawa uMr. Zokwana?
Sithathwe ngelaa xesha besikhokhasa phasi igroup phasi sikhokhasa ulanda sikhokhasa ukuzwana sombulala ke fika.
That decision was taken when we were caucusing there as a group, decided that to kill Mr. Zokwana when he arrives.
What would have happened? Sorry, sir. It appears you want to say something.
Yakwange-11 koza simatshele ema-ofisi nenamza sicula isilogho lesithi uzokwana sombulala kanjani hayi le namsa ayisonda.
Because on the 11th, when we marched to the offices, we were singing the slogan, "How are we going to kill Zokwana? We hate this now."
You testify that he was challenged to get out of the hippo. Do you remember that?
Uyakhumbula baxelela uba wachallengwa ukuba aphume ehipheni?
Ewe tata.
Yes.
Who challenged him to get out of the hippo?
Ubani omchallengile ukuba aphume ehipheni?
Wakhwazwa nguXolani wathi Zokwana yizapha.
Xolani called out to him and said, "Zokwana, come here."
What would have happened to Mr. Zokwana had he got out of the hippo?
Bekuzokwenza ntoni ke kuye uba ngabe ephumeni?
Sasombulala tata.
We are going to kill him.
He was, you are aware that he was in the presence of police officers. Is that so?
Uyazi kaloku uba unamapolisa bandit.
Yazi asazi ukuthi asidubuleki isibhama sisebenzi.
Yes, we knew, but we were not being capable of being shot. The firearms would not win.
Now, we are going to deal with the arrival of Mr. Mathunjwa.
Sizawuthetha ke ngofika ka Mr. Mathunjwa.
Ewe tata.
Yes.
What happened once he arrived where the strikers were?
Kwenzeke ntoni ke xa ifika uMr. Mathunjwa phaa kulaa ndawo apho abaqhankqalazi bebekuyo?
uMathunjwa wamkeleka kwathiwa makabuye ngomso.
Mr. Mathunjwa was welcomed. He was told to come back the next day on the 16th.
The 16th, yeah.
Yes, on the 16th.
Did Mr. Mathunjwa address the strikers?
Uthethile kuba addressile Mr. Mathunjwa abaqhankqalazi?
Ya wa-adressa esehiphini ngaphakathi.
Yes.
Bethethe bengaphakathi.
He addressed them from inside the vehicle, the hippo.
Could you hear what he said during his address?
Ubumva ke into ayithethayo ngexesha ba-address.
Ya wandamva esithi ethetha ubethwa ngumthetho uba bathethe bengaphakathi ehiphini. Wathetha ke ehiphini engaphakathi.
Yes, I heard him. He said it was because of the law that he was addressing the people from inside the hippo.
Is that all that we had?
Yolanda qha ifle.
Ya kwathiwa sathi makabuye ngomso.
Yes, and we said he should come back the next day.
Why was he requested to come back the next day? That is Mr. Matunjwa.
Kutheni ke kusithiwa makabuye ngomso?
Kungenxa uba lo nguye umuntu ezasowayemaleka uba afune into esizifunayo imfanelo esizifunayo le 12,500.
He was the one to be listened to, was supposed to go and demand our 12,500, which was our demand. Get us that demand.
Umuntu olapha entabeni sekuthiwa majoyine anko ayeke i-council inamba kufuna umember nampa entabeni.
Everybody on the mountain was told to join AMCO, council membership of NAM. No NAM members were allowed to be on the mountain.
Did the strikers at any stage make a promise or an undertaking to Mr. Matunjwa that they are going to lay down their weapons?
Khona ixesha apho abaqhankqalazi bamthembisa uMr. Matunjwa bazawubeka phansi isixhobo.
Hayi sathi isixhobo asinobekwa phansi umqeshi engasinika 20,500.
No, we said we were not going to lay down the arms until the employer gives us the 12,500.
After Mr. Matunjwa left, what happened?
Kwenzeka ntoni ke emva kokuba ehambile uMr. Matunjwa?
Asebehambile uMr. Matunjwa babuya uMatunjwa wabuya nge-16 yedwa.
Matunjwa left and returned on the 16th alone.
So we are still dealing with the 15th.
Siselapha ke kolusuku lwe-15. Emva kokuba ehambile nge-15 kwenzeka ntoni?
Saphindela saphindela kule ndawo salala entabeni tata thina saqwatshula salala pha entabeni.
We slept on the mountain, we sang and slept on the mountain.
On the 16th in the morning, did the Makarapas at any stage leave this area where they slept to the spot where they met with the general workers?
Ngentsasa ke yange-16 omakarapa bahamba kulaa ndawo bebelele kuyo baya apho ke badibana khona nobuninzi babasebenzi kuyo.
Ewe tata.
Yes, they did leave the place where they slept.
Did Mr. Matunjwa return on the 16th as he was requested?
Wabuya ke uMr. Matunjwa nge-16 njengoba beceliwe.
Ya wabuya utata uMathunjwa ekuseni wathi ulanda i-feedback ebelungwini ekuseni wabuya pha ko-9.
Yes, Mr. Matunjwa came back on around about 9 in the morning, and he said he was going to get a feedback from the employer.
Did he at any stage leave after telling the strikers that he's going to get a feedback from the employer?
Uhambile ke emva koba exelele abasebenzi bawuyofumana i-feedback belungu.
Wahamba kwazofika umbhishophu wabiza abantu abayi-5. I-report zange basixelele uba ebesithini umbhishophu.
Yes, Mr. Matunjwa left and the bishop arrived, called 5 people. We were not told about what the bishop allegedly said.
Can you name the 5 people that had a discussion with the bishop?
Ya ndimqonda Ngxolani ngumambushi.
I remember Xolani, Mambush,
Bele.
Engibaqondayo. Xolani, Mambushi, Bele.
Yes.
Bathathu.
Ya amagama abantu aqonda
Yes, those are the names.
Maybe 5.
The names I remember, but there were 5.
Did the bishop at any stage leave?
Yeah, hamba kwewapha umbishop. Khona ixesha pha ehamba ngakhona ngalo nje.
Ya wahamba umbishophu. Wahamba umbishophu sashiyeka entabeni thina.
Yes, the bishop left and we remained on the mountain.
During the presence of the bishop, were the strikers armed?
Ngexesha ke umbishop ekhona pha abaqhankqalazi bebexhobile.
Yiwo bexhobile tata.
Yes, they were armed.
What kind of weapons did the strikers have with them?
Bebephethe izixhobo ezinjani abaqhankqalazi ngelo xesha?
I-bush knife namikhonto sesihloniphe.
Spears, we were armed.
How did the strikers keep the weapon in the presence of the bishop?
Begcine phi ke bezibambe njani ngeli xesha ubishop ekhona ezi zixhobo?
Sasizibabeke ezandla tata abanye bezibeke bezilalise phansi.
We had the weapons in our hands, others had their weapons on the ground, they put them down.
Did Mr. Matunjwa return
Wabuya ke
to the copy?
Mr. Matunjwa pha entabeni.
Wabuya tata uMathunjwa entabeni.
Yes, Mr. Matunjwa returned to the copy.
Did Mr. Matunjwa give a feedback from the employer?
Wabuya ke nayo ingxelo evela kumlungu.
Ya wabuya esithi masibeke izikhali phansi kuzophalala igazi apha endikhumbulayo.
Yes, I remember him saying we should lay down the arms, there would be bloodshed here.
What was the response of the strikers to the request of Mr. Matunjwa?
Bathini ke abaqhankqalazi kule nto ethethwa nguMathunjwa?
Isathi asizibeki ibukhali phansi singa umqeshi engezanga kuthi malunga 12,500. Sizawutshayisana namapolisa kuliwe.
We were not laying down the arms until the employer gives us a 12,500 rand with the confrontation with the confrontation with the police. They can't be two bulls in one frog.
Asihlali ukuthi ezimbini esibayeni.
There can't be two bulls in one frog. Same as supposed to be right.
Yes, Chairperson. The witness said that they said to him that they will not lay down their arms until such time that the employer comes back to them about the matter of the 12,500. And it was interpreted as he said they will not lay down until they give them 12,500. In the context of what was discussed earlier, there's a subtle difference.
But how do you respond to what Mr.
Mr. Mathunjwa wathi ke anizuzibeka nathi anizuzibeka izixhobo phansi ade umqashi abuye athethe ngale ndaba yemali ye-12,500.
Ewe tata.
Yes, that's what I said.
Mr. Banat, will you please put up slide 163, Exhibit L?
Look at that slide. You did say something about two bulls in one car. Just remind me, who said that?
Uthethe ke phambi wasijonga lo mfanekiso. Uthethe nangenkunzi ezimbini esibayeni. Ubani othethe loo nto?
Kwathatha uMambushi tata.
Mambush was talking.
To whom did he say that?
Beyitsho kubani ixelela abantu loo nto?
wayexela ethetha ngesibhingi etshela abasebenzi uba inkunzi ezimbini azidibani esibayeni esiyi-1.
He was telling the workers that there can't be two bulls in one crop.
What do you understand it to mean?
Uthetha ntoni ke ngaloo nto? Uthetha ukuthini loo nto uba inkunzi ezimbini esibayeni?
Uzoliwa inkunzi ezimbini esibayeni ziyalwa enye inkunzi eligwala icheke ngapha ibale iye ngaphandle kucheke inkunzi enye esibayeni azidibani ke ezimbini.
He said there would be a fight, two bulls cannot be in one kraal, the coward one will run away. only one will remain in the crop.
Who were the two bulls as far as you understood?
Ngokuyiqonda njani loo nto uthetha ntoni zeziphi ezinkunzi zimbini?
Kuzocaca amapolisa nathi apha entabeni uba ngaba ke asisibalekile amapolisa awujika phansi siwabulele entabeni kuzawuliwa.
The police and us on the mountain, there will be fight. The police will remain down on the mountain if we defeat them.
Which bull was that? Was the cowardly bull?
Eligwala ibi.
Eligwala libalulekileyo kucheka inkunzi esibayeni inkunzi enye ke ibalekile iyacheka esibayeni enye ikhonya esibayeni bengumzwayo lo.
The coward one will run away and the victorious one will remain on the mountain.
Which of the two? You said one bull was the miners, the strikers, the other bull was the police.
So
which bull was the one who was going to run away?
Zimbini ke ezinkunzi ngabasebenzi lapha kwenye icala ngamapolisa iphi ke ezawubaleka.
Kuzawuliwa lo tata kubaleka kuba kuchekayo phansi.
Mr. Chair, there will be a fight. It will remain to be seen which one will remain on the ground.
The comment about the two bulls in one crawl, did that come up in while Mr. Matunjwa was present?
Iyavela ke lento yezinkunzi ezimbini ngeli xesha uMathunjwa ekhona.
Ewe tata.
Yes, it did.
So, in the context of the speech of Mambush referring to the two bulls, which was the brave one?
Eyiphi ke eligokha kwezinkunzi ezimbini uMabusha athetha ngazo?
Sithi amagokha obasidu siyazazi basidubuleka amapolisa sawaduba anoba adubula isibhama sisebenzi.
We are.
Sisebenzisa ama ishways.
We are, because we know we cannot be shot at. We know the firearms of the police will not work.
And
because we've used consumed the rituals.
which was a coward bull?
Eligwala ke yephi?
Iligwala ileya lo isibhama sisebenzi amapolisa esasithembileyo thina asisiyazi basidubuleki.
The coward bull is the bull carrying the firearm that does not function. We know that we cannot be shot. Right?
The right one, you want to check again?
Yeah.
Is the interpretation wrong?
No. I just want to find out what's going on in that place where Mr. X is. There seems to be joking around and laughing around and interacting with whoever is there. Who's sitting there and they're encouraging him or whatever is happening.
I don't know the answer to that. You can ask her that when you get to
No, Chairperson, if this is if there's any irregularity happening now, I can't wait for 2 weeks before it is. We were told you made a ruling that there was going to be somebody sitting there to make sure that these kinds of things don't happen. You can't tell me to wait for 2 weeks or 2 weeks.
Evidence leader there. Isn't evidence leader there? In fact, at one point, I saw him in the corner of the street. There is an evidence leader there.
Yeah, well, that's better, Chairperson.
And if anything untoward happens, it's his duty to see to it that it doesn't happen. He stops, and he just put his head around the corner. And there he is, Mr. Wesley.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Mr. Wesley's head. All I'm worried about is that whatever interactions are happening with this witness, which can be seen if you play the tape, must stop. And we do not want anyone else interacting with the witness while he's giving evidence.
I'm sure Mr. Wesley has heard what you said. And if there's any suggestion that any irregularities taking place, which Mr. Wesley's presence is designed to prevent, we will ask Mr. Wesley what it is. You made the point, Mr. Wesley's heard it, and I'm sure that knowing Mr. Wesley as we all do, he's likely to prevent any further irregularity if there was any irregularity. So let's go on with the other topics.
Mr. Wesley
Thanks. So when was a decision taken by the Makarapas that they are going to fight the police?
Isigqibo ke omakarapa basithatheni isigqibo soba bazawulwa namapolisa.
Sasithatha isigqibo uKaiser wathi amapolisa njengoba uba ngaba alandwa ngapha Eastern Cape ethe abantu abamnyama bazobulala thina azojika apha entabeni.
The decision was taken. Kaiser said if they're going to get police officers from the Eastern Cape to come and kill the black people here, those officers will remain on the mountain.
When was the decision taken, sir? That's the question I'm asking.
Umbuzo ke uthi ke sathathwa nini eso sigqibo?
Kudala tata sasekudala sithathe uba amapolisa ke ngabefika apha azobulawa awujika apho basiyabona siyazazi basidubuleki thina.
That decision was taken long ago, Mr. Chair. It was said that if the police are brought, they will be killed here, and we knew that we could not be shot.
Sithe sifumane 12,500 siyifunayo ungeze nomlungu.
Until we get the 12,500 that we want.
Asithi yaphi ingafiki lo mlungu.
Madef?
Asithi engafiki ulomlungu apha sinike le mali siyifunayo.
And we are not moving here until the employer gives us the money that we want.
Why was such a decision taken by the Makarapas to fight the police?
Kutheni omakarapa bethathe isigqibo esinjalo sokulwa namapolisa?
Kungenxa uba siyazazi basidubuleki sisebenzise umthi ama-insurance.
Because we had undergone these rituals, we knew that we could not be shot.
But the dispute, the increment dispute was between the strikers and the employer. Is that correct?
Kodwa ke mos ingxaki yokonyuselwa umvuzo phakathi kwabasebenzi nomqasha nomlungu.
Ewe tata.
Yes.
That being the case, that the dispute was between the employer and employees, why was a decision taken that the strikers are going to fight with the police?
Xa kunjalo ke ingxaki le iphakathi komqashi nomqeshwa, utheni ngokuthathwa isigqibo sokuba kuzawulwa namapolisa?
Kungenxa uba amapolisa athi masebeke bukhali phansi sehle entabeni.
It's because the police are saying we should lay down the arms and come off the mountain
Singazifumani into imali esiyifunayo.
before we get the money that we want.
So I'm referring you to slide 163.
Jonga ke pha ku slide 163.
Can you see that, sir?
Uyayibona? Yathemba iveziwe apha.
Ayikaveli tata.
Doesn't appear yet this side.
Oh, iveziwe tata.
Yes, I see.
You will see that in the slide closer it depicts three gentlemen. Can you see that?
Yabona ke kulo mfanekiso kubonakala amadoda amathathu pha apha ngaphambili
Ewe,
wabona.
tata.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
There is one in the middle
Khona ndoda
who
ephakathi
appears to be speaking.
bonakala ngathi nguye lothethayo nankuya yonathwa.
Yeah, ndiyambona tata.
Yes, I see.
Are you in a position to identify this gentleman?
Ngasicela uba ngubani ke lo mfo?
Yeah, ngumntu wamakarapha.
Yes, that is a member of the Makarapas.
Do you know his name?
Igama lakhe uyalazi?
Yeah, ndiyalazi uba uthela isona nathi ngu-Andres. Ndidanse ngu-Andres.
Ngubani? U-Andres.
Yeah, igama lakhe andi-understanda kuhle ngathi ngu-Andres yena.
Yes, I don't understand his name very well, but they say his name is Andres.
Behind Andres, there's a gentleman who's wearing a blackish or darkish top. Can you see that?
Emva kwakho Andres kho lo mfo unxibe itopu engathi mnyama uyambona nawe?
Ewe tata.
Yes, I see.
Are you in a position to identify this gentleman?
Lona ungamadenify uba ngubani?
Ya usisteward se-anko ekaria tata lo use-ofisini ya-anko pha ekaria la
Yes,
mfo.
that gentleman is Amco Stewart at Gary. He's in the office of Amco.
In front of Andres, there's also a gentleman who's wearing a darkish top. Can you see him?
bekhona ke
He's the
lo
one with the loud header over his shoulders.
Thanks, Chair.
lo thwele laa nto yokumemeza ukuthetha nankuya yambona
Ewe
bekapha
tata.
egxalabeni yes I do.
Do you know this gentleman?
Uyamazi lo?
Ndiyamazi ngombona xa igama lakhe andilazi.
I know him by sight but I don't know his name.
How do you know him?
Uthi mazi ngokumbona mazi kanjani?
Ya ndimbona ngombona tata ndimbona apha entabeni.
I know him by sight. I saw him on the mountain.
Where on the mountain did you see him?
Umbone phi pha entabeni?
Ndambona wehamba nomathunjwa wegroup amathunjwa.
I saw him. He was walking with the Matunjwa and the others. He was in that group of Matunjwa.
Will you please go to slide 164?
I say I slide to slide like 164.
Do you have it before you say?
We bet. Unayo pha?
Ewe tata.
Yes, I do.
Ewe ndiyifumene tata.
Yes, I located.
Behind the gentleman who's holding a loudspeaker on his shoulder, there's a gentleman. Can you see him?
Emva kwalaa mfo uthwele laa nto yokuthetha pha egxalabeni kho lo mnye usemva kwakhe nanku uyambona?
Ya tata ndiyambona.
Yes, I see.
Do you know him?
Uyamazi lo?
Ya ndiyamazi ngubhele lo. Tholakele igama lakhe.
I know him. That is Bele. Tholakele igama lakhe.
Ya tholakele ya.
Tholakele is his first name.
How do you know Tolakele?
Umazi lakhe uTholakele.
Utholakele ngulona zasithathe na istrike wekhuluma etime office sithi nomlungu le usenza upopayi.
Tholakele is a gentleman who was talking at the time office saying this white man is making fools of us, making us Popeyes.
Was he part of the persons that took part in the strike, the unprotected strike?
Utholakele uthathe inxaxheba naye kwesi strike singekho emthethweni qanqalazo.
Ya unikomiti abiyabe bengumuntu wamakarabha kusukela.
Yes, he is a committee member and a member of the Makarabas.
In your evidence in chief, you testified about a gentleman who was in possession of a firearm, the top portion of which was painted red. Do you remember that?
Ebungqineni bakho ke uthethe ngomfo wayephethe umpu onalo mbala ubomvu apha phezulu.
No, that was not his evidence.
Kuye lo tata.
Goodness
He
already
didn't say
answered
it was
yes.
painted red. He said there was.
Said there was a red firearm.
Thanks, Chair.
No, he said there was a firearm with red on it.
No, he didn't. That's exactly the point I was querying the other day. He said there was a red firearm, and I said I can't see a red firearm, and then there was a whole long discussion. Now that's being cured by a question.
I'll
Kuye
reference
tata
it.
lo.
It's fine, Chair. The person that you have described as Tolakele, you indicated that he was part of the Makarapas. Is that correct?
Uthi utholakele ke ngomnye wamakarabha.
Ewe tata.
Yes.
Was he at any stage armed during the period of the unprotected strike?
Apha ke ngexesha kuwenzeka esi strike qoqhankqalazo uke waphatha isixhobo utholakele waba nesixhobo kuye.
Ya wenaso isibhamu sakhe sibovu sipendwe ngepende ebovu.
Yes, he had his firearm which is red. It's painted in red paint.
Thanks, Chair. Will we proceed to slide 168? Sorry, 165. I'm sorry about that.
Asijonge ke 165 mfanekiso lo.
There's a gentleman who's wearing a black top who appears to be holding a loud hailer. Do you see him?
Mbona lo mfo lathayo uphethe laa nto ilawuthela leyo kuthetha nxibe itophu
Ewe
emnyama.
tata.
Yes.
Ewe tata.
Yes, I
I think it's an optical illusion. I think the gentleman to whom you're referring is holding a microphone. I think think behind the microphone is a loud hailer, and I suspect that the gentleman with the checked shirt is holding the loud hailer.
Thanks, Chair.
Kodwa khona ngathi lo muntu lapha ekuqaleni akaphethanga le nkulu lephethe i-microphone le yanto iphethwe ngulo ngapha ya.
Thanks, Chair. These two gentlemen depicted in the slide.
La madoda ke kodwa mabini siwabonayo pha wawabona?
Yeah, what that?
Yes, I did.
Are they known to you?
Uyawazi la madoda?
Yeah, lena ilendoda le bendicela bayihamba nomathunjwa bayi-3 kodwa le uqala ezothetha kulandele omnye umathunjwa uzothetha mva ekugqibeleni kula madoda amathathu.
Yes, this gentleman, I'm not sure to which gentleman the witness is pointing to, is a man I said was in the company of Mr. Matunjwa. They were 3. This gentleman will speak first and Mr. Matunjwa will speak last. Umpilo umolathayo nguloso phambili lapha efotweni lokuqala.
Yeah, ngulokuqala.
The person I was pointing to is the gentleman nearest to me as I'm watching the screen.
See, with the black jacket, dark coat.
No, bebe solathwa ngokunxibela ibhaji emnyama this.
What that?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett, will we go to slide 166?
Asijonge ke slide 166.
Do you have the slide before you, sir?
Unaso so slide umfanekiso 166?
When the nurse that?
Yes, I do.
There's a gentleman who's wearing a green and black tracksuit top. Do you know him?
Nansi le ndoda inxibe i-tracksuit emnyama enemibala i-green. Uyamazi lo mfo? I know him.
Will you tell us his name?
Ungasixelela uba ngubani lo gama la?
Uxolani tata lo.
That is Xolani.
How do you know Xolani?
Umazelaphi Xolani?
Uxolani weyikomiti abengumakarapha pha entabeni.
Xolani was a committee member and a member of the Makarapas on the mountain. A committee in the Makarapa.
Wengumahlani phana sentabeni wetata.
When's that?
Wenguclever apha entabeni.
He was a clever one on the mountain.
Chair, I note it's 3 o'clock.
I'll take the German as soon as we've gone through the series of slides speaking of the loud hailer. The microphone of the loud hailer. But is this the last one or are there more?
There are more slides.
All right, well, we're going to take Please, German.
Right, sir.